And so, of course, that's understood, isn't it? Even when we don't always do that. And so, caring for ourselves well, coming home to ourselves well, is essential to offering that which we have been gifted, the love we have, the care we have, the patience we have, the joy that we have. But I'm going to talk about it from a slightly different angle. And the angle that I think I'm going to speak about it from may be less popular, because I actually see caring for yourself as an obligation, a duty, a responsibility, as well as a privilege. And I think Sharon does a really good job of saying, it's a good thing and we really need to do it for ourselves. And I'm going to say not only is it a good thing, it's required thing for you to be who you were really um, here to be. Without the full well of your own being, you cannot be then what you would wish to give, to gift, to be, and to receive, even from others. And so Rilke, Renee Marie Rilke, who was a German, I think primarily wrote in German. Rilke, I thought, always had the best understanding of this. And so Rilke, while we're getting together, I'll just share a few lines from poems of his. Rilke said things like, God, you need me. You need me, God. Without me, there is no vase into which to pour your goodness. There is no way to put form to the formless. Uh, and Rilke spent a lot of time really trying to cultivate maybe what we'll call the non-dual or not one directional relationship with spirit, with the divine, with that which is sacred, holy, and which is us. Richard Rohr also says, and I love this, God comes in many disguises. The biggest disguise of all is you. God comes in many disguises. The biggest one of all, the one you never see, the one you continue to forget, the one you can't make contact with and don't recognize, is the God that actually is being lived through you. Now, of course, because the teachings that I have been trained in are non-theistic, meaning not one source, not one being, not a guy with a robe or a beard. Um, and I can't say it isn't true. I am just saying that these teachings, the ones I know about, are how to make access with that sacred, with that divine, with that goodness in you. And then if you did make contact with that, how would you care for yourself? If you actually knew the truth of it, then that this is God indwelling in you, how would you care for that? And we often get this idea that it is our job or our task to see that divine, that sacred, that holy in others. It is also true. But however, in this tradition, what we understand is if you cannot know it in your own body, being, mind, heart, you cannot then actualize it in the reality of being in relationship to others. So when we see people be disregarding, aggressive, um, disrespectful, what we know is that in fact that is their relationship as well to themselves, no matter how much your perception might be that they are self-centered, self-cherishing. And in fact, what do we know? We know that we become self-cherishing out of a hunger, out of a starvation of not attending well or correctly, right? To that which is most deserving, most in need of being filled and fulfilled. That goodness in you. We did a soaking in the practice last week. We're going to change that a little bit to see if we can't find the inspired, divine, sacred, holy, really in you. Because without it, self-care becomes an impossibility, truly an impossibility. With it, I think there's hope. With that recognition in all of us, I think we have great hope for being able to care for ourselves and then being what I'll just call that full well of being that we can offer to others. I'm going to just check chat here quickly. Good morning to everyone. It's good to see you all. We have quite a lovely group gathered this morning. Thank you for getting up and getting to it. This is maybe the first gift to yourself of self-care, opening one's own heart, mind, spirit to that which is present, that which is whole and consequently holy, gathering it together in these morning practices. Don't you notice that the day is better from these practices? I definitely do. I have more patience. I have more genuine care available, both for me and others. I have more joy in my day as well as a result. So I'm glad you're here to join me do that. Let's fill the tank this morning. Then we'll look at chapter 5, coming home to ourselves. I'm trying to think of another way that I might frame that. It would be something like coming home to the goodness of you, coming home to the truth of who you really are, coming home to the preciousness, to the nobility, to the essential, foundational stardust, it says in chapter 5. That is the beauty of you. Let's practice together. Now, we're still letting in a few people. Thank you, Carrie, for helping with that. I'm going to read this piece. Everything here seems to need us. This is Rilke's idea again, which is we're not just doing this for us. This idea that it is self-centered is so wrong. It doesn't mean we don't have self-centered tendencies or habits, but it always comes out of actually the reality of a perceived deficiency. That's a big statement. All of our self-cherishing, clinging to self, focusing on self, actually doesn't come out of how big we think we are. It actually comes out of how small we feel, and consequently have to look, act, image bigness instead of just being. And we get mixed up about that a lot, that, well, there they are, thinking they're right, or there I am. That's actually almost always out of a true trance of deficiency, unworthiness, and not seeing the truth of oneself. If you do, when you do know the truth of oneself, that God indwelling, they say at Quest Haven, then the truth is there's nothing extra needed. It doesn't mean you don't wear earrings, right? It means they don't matter. They're for fun or joy, but they're not required in order to be happy or whole or connected or to belong, any of that. Here we go. Everything here seems to need us. I can hardly imagine it as I walk to the lighthouse, feeling the ancient prayer in my arms swinging in counterpoint to my feet. It's already a miracle. Here I am, suspended between the sidewalk and the twilight, the sky dimming so fast it seems alive. What if you felt the invisible tug between you and everything? A boy on a bicycle rides by, his white shirt open, flaring behind him like wings. It's a hard time to be human. We know too much. The cliffs, the gulls. If you've managed to do one good thing, the ocean doesn't care. But when Newton's apple fell toward the earth, ever so slightly, fell towards the apple and you. As you fall to the earth actually is there holding you. And then a quote from the chapter we just read. And this is also by Rilke, by the way, if a sadness rises in front of you, larger than any you have ever seen, if an anxiety like light and cloud shadows moves over your hands and over everything you do, you must realize that something is happening in you, to you, that life has not forgotten you, that it holds you in its hand and will not let you fall. And as he said in the moment just before, and in fact, the earth is also falling towards you. We'll close this for now. So prepare to sit. And so let's just drop in for a moment to the miracle, really, of this present moment as known by this body. You might be feeling clothing or warmth, contact of skin or cloth or structure, the chair, the cushion. And in each breath, in fact, though Rilke didn't say it, we are falling into our lives, falling into the present moment, falling if we choose to open into the sacred, into the holy, into the whole of it. And the earth is here also falling, being right here. See if we can't get the sense of that with each out breath. As we settle down, as we arrive, so the earth rises up to kiss us. As the present moment rises up to gift us. And just feeling that sense. This coming home to ourselves is also coming home to everything. Feeling the feet on the floor or wrapped beneath you. The beauty of the feet. The miracle of the legs. The stability, the base of the hips. The dignity of the spine. The beautiful balancing dance of the head. And the beauty of your own face as it rests. No requirements, not having to be or look any way at all. And then let's see if we can't drink that beauty, that goodness. Let's drink it in with the next in-breath, taking a big in-breath. Filling the whole soft part of the front of the body and then breathing out, just soaking into it. And being sure to rest rather than contrive. Nothing required. The whole of this life rising up to greet you with each breath. Let's rest in the breath together. And then as we're resting, let's call to mind, just naturally as it comes, let's call to mind at least one other, a special one, someone in need, maybe someone you don't even know somewhere else who has forgotten their loveliness. Let's breathe in and remember, not only for ourselves, but for them. And may this practice be a benefit to all beings everywhere without exception, omitting none. Awakening us so that we can remember and be free. And as Rilke says, the bell itself needs you. It needs those ears, that hearing consciousness, that mind that knows the goodness of the strike of the bell. And can use it to benefit. The bell always calling out now. Be here now. Wake up now. Love unconditionally now. And we don't begin in any other moment. We don't wait till the end of the practice or the middle phase. We wake up right here. No time to waste. And so we enter into the temple of the body. Gifted to us for a time. So that the miracle of this being, the gift of this precious human life, and that life never, ever abandons you. You have to abandon it. So that that's clear. It gifts you this breath and then this one too. Can we fully arrive? And isn't it the greatest act of love, the greatest act of kindness, of unconditional friendliness, true friendship, to actually show up? And to really show up, as we know, we have to show up without the storyline. without the narrative of how it is and how I am and why it should be some other way. It's not true. If each moment is a gift, what is it gifting you right now? Well, wake up. And remember what we said at the beginning, it isn't just what life offers you. That's gratitude and appreciation, and those are beautiful things. It's also what you bring, that you also are a gift to this life. You are essential to its wholeness. And so, how do you arrive? How do you dress up for that or dress down? And let's rest in the breath. See if we can show up bare, naked attention. Nothing in the way, nothing separating you from this life or life from you. And if you notice or perceive that the breath is boring, it's because you didn't show up. The breath requires you to be animated, to be incarnated, to be alive, to be precious. It requires you, and it requires all of you. There's not a story you could tell that could be nearly as interesting as the truth of the present moment with you in it. Can we drop in, beginning with the breath, being in this body? As a way of making contact with this life. There is no time for the story of deficiency. It's a delusion. We cannot waste time there. It tarnishes the preciousness of you and life lived through you. We are breathing life into being as life is breathing us. Can we begin to make contact with the preciousness of this life, the preciousness of this body, the preciousness of this gifted opportunity? Can we wake up with each breath? And let's begin our self-care plan every day with this. And from this loving presence, then we can entrust our thoughts, our words, and our deeds to that goodness, to that wholeness, that holiness. to that contact with the sacred, that God indwelling. And we could do nothing but care well. But it requires this stillness, this steadiness, this calmness. Love can only live here. Joy can only be awakened here. There is no past moment that will be sufficient, and no future. We bring it all right here. And so, this first act of self care is this showing up, this present moment with oneself exactly as we are, and using whatever arrives as a part of the lesson plan to be known, to be held. So that we might understand something about this being human and continue to find a way to open, to receive, to understand so that we can heal. And we're always healing into wholeness. This is the work. Can I include this too? This fear, this confusion, this grief or sorrow, this boredom. Maybe even self-pity. No need to be any other way at all, to be whole and holy. The goodness is in the receiving, in the opening, in the allowing, in the holding. And we're asked to do it again and again, every breath. And then, right from this very practice, we can begin to see our habits of what we get in the way, of what we put in the way, oftentimes as ways of avoiding what we don't want or what we don't like or what we're afraid of. We put in these self cherishing thoughts, these self preoccupations, this story of me. And it pushes the sacred, the holy, the goodness right out. It consumes everything. And it sucks us in. And then we awaken. We can feel the distress. We can feel the disconnect, the separation, the feelings of not enoughness. And we wake up. And then we begin again, arriving just here, bare, naked attention. We let the storyline fall away one more time. There is no problem in the present moment. There is no struggle. There can be no resistance. You are already here. And in that presence, we can be with everything. The harsh thought, the abrupt sound, sensations we like or don't like. None of it's a problem. There's space and room in this stillness and silence. In the goodness of our own being, there's room for everything. Everything needs you. And so we soften and open a little bit more. And then we show up and do it again. And if you have dropped in, if the mind is concentrated, if the attention is gathered and the body softened, you can feel the truth of stillness and silence embracing you. Inside and out. And then love and care is all there is. And we breathe it in and we breathe it out. And thus we train to the end of suffering. It's 7:45. I know some of you head out for work. Please enjoy your day. Bring yourself like this to it, and it will be a good day. So thank you for being here, those who have to leave now. We're just going to offer ourselves a moment of transition. Give yourself a little stretch, or we're going to be looking at chapter 5 this week. So if you have marked anything or One of the things that I invited you to do, let me get this light out of your face. One of the things I invited you to do last week was the exercise that Sharon recommended in chapter 5. So we're going to look at that a bit. You were invited to, though I know many of you didn't, you were invited to do those 3 columns and then to share that with your buddy. If you didn't do that last week, we have time. You will be able to do it this week before we move on to chapter 6. So I'm going to see if I can't pull that up a little bit. Let's see how I do. Now we will look at that. Try again. Here we go. This is this is part of chapter 5 now. I'm going to go back a little bit to its beginning. And let's see what we have here. The primary goal, I believe, of this chapter was to say you cannot leave yourself out of care. And as we devote ourselves to real change in the world, you cannot ignore caring intimately, caring deeply, caring in a daily way for yourself. And, you know, we often in the West, of course, we believe that that looks like diet and exercise. Well, they're certainly real, valid, and useful. But I, again, am trying to speak to what I think has to come even before we make choices about that, which is this genuine regard, this genuine care, and real contact with oneself and who we really are, so that we can offer those things to ourselves without these well too common habits of unworthiness, of undeservedness. We don't even give ourselves time to eat, let alone to make healthy food. We don't give ourselves, we exercise by demand, measuring the, results rather than just enjoying movement and nature and the connection of both in our daily activities. These are habits that have a significant, profound, really, consequence that I want to look at with us. I have a note here, just going to take a look before we start. Today, I was full of gratitude to you and EMC for bringing me home to myself again and again. Yeah, isn't it? We need each other in this. It's true. And yeah, without each other, we don't do as well because we're ultimately reminders for that. When we see the goodness in another, can we remember it as a part of our true nature? When we see contribution, when we see the effortlessness, I think, I'm always so struck by this, like just the person's being, not with any interest in being a giver or a change agent, or just in their being themselves, really their truest selves. And I'm so inspired by that. Just the way someone pets their cat. This could be unbelievably, it's like a miracle, like just the love that can be present, the way someone tends a garden. I have Juan outside right now and he's just walking around the yard. It could make me cry. Attending, just looking, like what needs attention, what needs care, and just there full, like a full well to offer that. And it's always inspiring to us. Deep in our hearts, we all long for a feeling of being at home. Yes, in this body, in this mind, with someone else on this planet. We do. It's actually our birthright, Shiva. So it says, we have been gifted this life for, in fact, exactly that purpose. And then can we get out of our way in the receiving in the offering, in the exchange, so that that's just what is continuous as much as the breath itself, really, right? The flow of the breath, that's it. Love like this, fearlessness like this. And so let's see if we can't make contact with that through some of Sharon's words here in this chapter. Coming home to ourselves, here's one of the things she wanted to look at, which is whether it's a quiet problem or it has blown our lives apart. She's talking specifically about addictive patterns here, and we all have some. At the root, we find an urge to feel something whole, unfractured, significant, real. This is, again, our birthright. We have to obscure that. We're the ones that climb in the way out of our fear, out of our belief thought that if I don't grab that addictive device, then I can't have, in fact, what I really need. It's an interesting dilemma, because what we actually do know is what all addictive thoughts, all seeking, all cravings, all clinging are in fact the whole, as we understand these teachings, of the cause of suffering. And we're doing exactly the opposite. If I could only have that, if I could only keep this, if I could only secure what, and we could list a list of, infinite things. Then I could be whole. Then I could be happy. Then I could be present. And we actually know it is, in fact, the thing that gets right in the way, quite the opposite. It's not selfish and it's not wrong, although those who dedicate so much of their time trying to help others or be good, let's even use that, or be nice, that's one right out of the, right, deadly, often tend to consider such a wish to be too self-centered. Often we are giving truly with the idea of getting something that we need in return. This is often also the case. Why? Because we get depleted, we burn out, we get empathy fatigue. We can no longer care for others because it feels like an unending well of need. It's actually true. Needs continue. Where we interact with them is what we're going to be looking at. And if we begin whole, then I have a lot of confidence, by the way, in our capacity to go into the next moments, the next, and with our abundance, with our resilience, with our wholeness. See, I can make this offering, and this is good. This is good, whatever that happens to be, because you are there for that offering, and also in the receiving. We're going to look at that too. If we don't think we can ever do enough, this is one of the deficiency habits of mind. If we're taught to believe we could never be enough, we won't be able to keep on giving. Well, that's right, empty well. I have a note here, one of the questions for this week. What messages did you receive growing up about your goodness, about your enoughness, about the miracle of you? What messages did you receive? One of my questions, I'm going to be posting that. That's in the notes section. I'll include that this week. The good news is that there are ways to practice happiness, kindness, compassion, resilience, thereby strengthening ourselves and ultimately strengthening our capacity for service. Now, remember, I'm looking at the exchange, what we bring to life and what life brings to us. And it has to be an exchange. It can't just be me giving. And we have a strong Judeo-Christian tradition that buys in to you just keep giving like that giving tree until you're dead. And then if you're really lucky, you get to heaven, or you get a salvation, or you get whatever the promise. And in this tradition, we're not waiting for any other moment. We're really here, I believe, in order to interact with this amazing life, this amazing environment, and bring that heaven right here through us. Here's the exercise. Your habitual patterns of relieving stress. It's just to look at some of our adaptive or maladaptive strategies. It says make 3 columns. In the first column, we're writing down our stressors. the stressor of a new job, the stressor of an ended relationship, the stressor of my gardener out there waiting for me like he thinks I'm going to get out there anytime soon. It's not going to happen, right? Okay, there you are. You're going to be waiting, right? These kinds of stress, whatever your current stressor. In the second column, you write down what you do in the face of that stressor. Well, right now I'm just smiling and laughing and letting it go. To take a break, to build resilience, to make yourself whole. What do you do in that second column? Maybe we could just pick one thing. What's the current stressor? What are we doing in the face of that stressor? Are we looking the other way? Are we just hoping it changes, which it of course will? Are we not doing the taxes? Avoidance? Are we attending to our sorrow? What are we doing? In the third column, after reflecting on what you wrote in the first two, write down how you feel about what's in the second column. That's your strategy, your offer. That's how you are responding or reacting to the particular stressor. And what she goes on to say is that people, of course, identified both healthful and less healthful, wholesome and less wholesome, reactive and responding responses in relationship to the stressor. What we notice in the research, of course, is that though we cognize, we can know what the adaptive strategy is. Let's just use my very simple one, drink more water, right? I just know that's good for me, drink more water. I have to break down about 100,000 other habits to get to that water every day. And it becomes a more complex situation that I have to keep investigating. Why am I not bringing the water into the room? Why am I not drinking the water when I'm on Zoom? Why am I waiting for some other moment in which to get to the water? And that inquiry is actually what we're inviting here. What's really happening with that strategy or that pattern? Here's something about the stardust. I think of our bodies as made of stardust. In fact, it's true. And if we understood this is that same as knowing oneself and God in oneself as oneself. How then would we care? How then would we act? How then would we attend to ourselves? I'm going to check chat just to make sure we don't have too much going. It looks like we've got some comments here. I want to catch them. The more I show up authentically, the better my heart feels, the better everything is. Dennis, no doubt about it. So you keep practicing that, even when it's difficult or painful. That is actually also true. We don't trust this much, that if I can show up with my sorrow, it's actually also a gift, not only to me in allowing my sorrow to be true and attended to and real, and allowing others to support me, but it allows others to make contact with theirs as well as just a part of this human life. Watching others struggle with this, especially people you love, is so hard, isn't it? True, because you cannot fix the habit patterns of another. You can simply fix your own around it. And so believing if only you wouldn't do that, then you'd be better, or then I could love you more. And I'm not in any way suggesting that this is Leanne's thinking. I'm just saying it's our human response. If only you could be some other way, then I could love you or be present, or we would be better. I feel like the mistake is to assume so much agency in the good deeds. It is so true, Annika. We are channels for something larger, divine love. You can call it all that. It is given through us. And if we are depleted, exhausted, not caring for ourselves, that process cannot happen. Amen. Amen. Amen to that. Absolutely, completely correct. You deprive life of you out of your trance of insufficiency, and then not attending that is guaranteed to follow it. The trance of insufficiency. People do lots of things to reconnect and recharge. These were some of the good strategies, the ones we tend to think of as healthful. What do you do and how do you feel about it? What are your typical strategies? Take a look at that. We have great ideas, I have to say, great ideas. And then we get into the actualizing them, and like just this drinking water, we notice how it can go to hell, right? Like the great idea of drinking water. I've got 19 jugs around. I'm still working on the practice. And can I open to that? Can I just say, yes, I've spent the last 60 plus years not drinking water. Can I allow myself some time and space with a committed effort, with a little discipline, with a getting back on it when I realize that I haven't, and begin again, just like in the practice with the breath. It cultivates that discipline. It cultivates that sticking with. It cultivates and helps us remember that we are deserving and worthy of this effort and attention. Let me go on here. Oh, the wellness plan that Sharon talks about. I loved the idea of a wellness community, of a self-care community, of a self-care club. Those people that we could not only ask to hold us in our cultivating skillfulness, wholesomeness, and good habit for ourselves, that we could enlist them and also let them be accountable, that we could be accountable to them. I think it truly makes a difference. That's why you have a buddy to go, how did you do on your wellness plan? How did you do on your self-care plan? What is the self-care plan? By the way, how are you planning to take good care of yourself right now? And how are you planning, not only in this moment, how are you planning to continue it, to sustain it, to make it a life skill, not just a moment? And that practice, we need others to support us. And those others, by the way, as we know, need us. We often neglect self-care out of a mistaken belief that attending to it is being selfish. This is well inculcated in our culture. It's why we spend all of our time thinking about ourselves, by the way, because we have not been given any permission to attend to ourselves. We're just supposed to be giving, beautiful, smart, rich, thin, you could think of your billion, I don't know, it's endless, right? You're just supposed to be that. And you definitely want to just look like that's the case. And in fact, it's only out of a set of healthful habits that come out of you knowing that you are deserving of this care and this attention and this love. And that we, as Annika says, we get in the way of the great plan, the divine plan, when we don't do that for ourselves. These are things like setting limits. I'm not going to work. I'm not going to take that client. I'm not going to work past 4 o'clock. I'm not going to work on Thursdays. These are very small little moments for me of self-care. I am going to get on a walk today. I am, right? And I am deserving of this, because whatever we practice is what we become. That is the truth. Whatever we practice is what we become. If we are practicing running ourselves into the ground, then that's what we'll continue to practice, and the consequences will be clear. What are your practices as it relates to regular self-care? What are the obstacles? What commitments can you make to yourself in the aspiration to care for all beings equally, beginning with you? What aspirations can you make? I'm going to put that in this week's reflections also. What are the practices of self-care for you? What are you working on? What's in the way of them? This is really important. What gets in the way? Really important. Now I'm looking again just at myself at this very simple thing called drinking water. Well, what I have to do to drink the amount of water I need to be drinking is take time to drink. Take time. I have to stop, pause. I never feel thirsty, by the way. I've trained myself out of that for certain. And then I have to drink, right? It's not the water, not the problem. It's certainly not the problem. I have 10,000 thermoses everywhere, right? They're as available as could possibly be. Where's the issue now? Creating space, creating time, pausing to do it. There it is. That's where my habits really lie. Lack of support for self-care. We've often not been given permission. We've not been privileged to care for ourselves well. I work in the public schools. I cannot tell you how difficult it is for me to get a school, a teacher, a guidance counselor, or a resource person to let a kid who needs to move every hour to do that. It's almost impossible. It literally gets down to legal battles to go, can we just get him out there for 5 minutes to run around so that he can attend? The answer is always no. No, we can't do that. We can't, because that would be a special need, and we don't attend to special needs or needs of individuals. We don't have time, space, energy, resource for that. And then I have to go about the business of working with, let's just figure out a plan so that you don't have to be the one, and it can still happen. But we're not built, are we? Our public school systems or even private school systems are built for the largest good, not for any one individual need. But who then attends? Who then attends? That has to be us, and we have to learn how to do it. Participants reported guilt and shame associated with their own well-being, very common, especially for caregivers, which they came to think of as in conflict with the selflessness of their work. It's not true. They are wholly integrated and right. They are one hand nourishing, nurturing the other. Self-care is not simply about me time. This is also a mistake. That then is what we call binging, right? Binging on whatever, food, binging on alcohol, binging on TV, binging on Facebook, binging on social media, binging on whatever we're just laying around, because we're so depleted that, and we just reach for whatever's available rather than be nourishing. So that is a clear distinction, and we have to pay attention. We're actually replenished and nourished by fellowship, by community, by belonging, by the support of others. This is essential to our well-being, and we don't do that either, especially during this COVID. We have separated even further from those nourishing others. And it has taken many of us big work to reconnect. How am I going to get those essential needs met? Awaken Joy, she just talks about finding the good in these precious and simple moments. Can we create time and space for that as well, for doing nothing but just enjoying every day? For example, I lay on the couch here in my office. That's when I'm often drinking my water, one of my refuge spots in the day, just looking out at the yard. Or I'll go sit out on the patio, just enjoying, no agenda beyond that, just enjoying. And I do that every day as often as I can between 4 and 5:30. As I'm ending the day and transitioning, can I just be in joy? We have to make ourselves a priority, is actually the statements here. We have to hold on to the precious beauty, to the moments of triumph, and fight in the hope that there are more victories to come, more beauty and love in our future. The reason I took that quote is actually, I think we have to enliven it in the present moment. I think thinking about, and then I'll get, though it can be slightly reinforcing, can also be a negative for us. We have to be careful that we don't keep pushing off, and then I'll do it, and then I'll get to it, and then I'll be kind, and then I'll be loving, and then I'll be caring, because I don't think we get to it. I think we learn how to push things off for the future. And how do we grab hold in the present moment and hold it there and find it what's nourishing now, not wait for some other moment. I've used the example many times of my brother, who for 20 years said to me every single year, okay, we'll go on that Alaskan cruise next year. And then the next year would come and I'd go, come on, August, let's get a date. And he'd say, no, I've got a the gutters, and I got to put the screen doors up, and I got a la. And the year he died, I said, well, yeah. And he said, yeah, right. Big mistake. Big mistake. We never got there. And it isn't about Alaska. It was, we did the same things with time together, with just enjoying each other. There's always something else to clean, something else to arrange, something else to organize or order up, until there is no more moments. And so we have to watch what we're practicing now, right? That's the key, because it becomes your life. We also need to look to see what is not broken. I love that line. And in fact, I believe it's true. Can we see the blessing in every moment? This is a practice. Can we see that even in the face of the difficulty, there is an offering being made here? There's an opportunity here for us. And the answer is no. Often we can't, because the negativity bias of the mind goes, I don't like this. I'm just focused on getting rid of this, not what is this moment offering me, and what can I offer it? Often just beginning with presence, often beginning with receiving, accepting, and opening, allowing the experience as it is, to then see, how can I use this very moment to grow in wisdom, in love, in compassion, and then make whatever offerings are the result of that. Let's see what else she has to say. I think this is the essence of this chapter. She talked about communal singing and other ways of joining with each other. Music, of course, that's one of the things I miss the most, that joy of the vibrancy of music and one's own being in it. I did put in blue this gladdening the mind. This is a practice within the Buddhist tradition, and it begins with those 4 recollections. Gladdening the mind with the 4 recollections. What are they? Remembering the preciousness of this human life, remembering that each moment is an opportunity to love, to give and receive, to remember the impermanence of it all, that there is not a next moment, and not a next, and not a next. There is only this one, and to remember that we will be the result of that what we practice, we become. And so then how do we live? And with those 4 recollections each day, it says we will live most skillfully. Remembering love in the face of all adversity. It is still there, it is still present, even when it's painful. Love does not die. Remember, no love dying here. It is not a come and go experience. And so can we see the love in it, the holding of another, even in the sorrow, even in the grief, even in the fear, that there is that possibility in all of us. But we have to practice first, drinking in for ourselves, showing up for ourselves so that we have what we need to do that for others. When we see that appreciating what's good in our lives is right, not wrong, we can feel it lifting us up and replenishing us. We ultimately can feel a resilience, capacity of resilience, which is also what this is about. And then someone here speaks about spreading joy, benevolent contagion. We know the truth of this, don't we? Because we know when we our very offerings of our smile, our presence, it ignites others. It isn't even because that's what the intention is. It's just its nature. And of course, you know that, like I do. Let me check. Let's see if we've got anything else. We got lots of comments. Let's look at those. Yes, even in the face of difficulty, we do send love anyway. We can feel it, we can breathe it, we can send it out. That's right. And I do that every day, as I know you do, calling someone to mind and wishing them well, wishing them ease, wishing them happiness or relief. Some people abandon their self-care habits because of all or none thinking. Yes, that's exactly right. If I can't run a marathon, why walk around the block? It is a very bad habit of ours. And again, we either have to be perfect or nothing, and we often choose nothing as a result because the perfection is impossible. And yes, again, we start again and again without judgment, recrimination, and hatred. Can we just begin again? Beautiful. Yes. Yes, districts have philosophies and biases that often they speak to until you break down a door. That's what real change is. That's what we're all working on. How do we help people see what the needs are? When I worked in the Native American communities, I was taught to bring a gallon of local spring water when visiting a distant community. It was a special joy to present the water to the tribal elder that worked with the spiritual traditions. That's beautiful. Yeah, nourishment right there. Tigers above, sharks below, eat the strawberry in the crevice. That's exactly right. Can we just be in this present moment with this blessing, this joy, this love, this holding, this opening to it? That's it. Can we show up again and again? And we're always, our habits are what? To look for some other moment. And then later, if I do this, then I get to the goodness. I don't think we actually work well that way. I think the goodness is actually every moment. And our job is to be glad, to be joyful, and to open to it, and also drink it in, literally and otherwise. Perhaps bringing spring water as a spiritual gift to Diana would help her add the drinking water practice to her daily practice. Just thinking out loud. By the way, I use the Carlsbad water as my tribal gift. Beautiful. It isn't for lack of water. I wish it was that. I wish it was just that there wasn't enough water. What is there not enough of? Diana's directing attention, loving attention towards herself. This is where the lack is. There's lots of water. And once I open myself to that, then of course, what do you see? Water, water everywhere and all drinkable when we're attending, when we're present, when we're showing up. Yes, go enjoy, Andy. Thank you. Let me see. I think these are the points I wanted us to focus on. Be where you are is what that said. It was focusing on if you can't be in the moment totally, be with the part you can be with. And isn't it true? So if you can't really hold the whole thing, what part can you hold in this moment? What part can you make contact with? The truth is being revealed right here. We don't have to choke down a whole reality. What can be true that I can open to right here and now? That's it. It's good enough. Sometimes it feels like we have to run a race. This is what we're doing to ourselves, by the way. We have to beat the onslaught of hatred, divisiveness, the beleaguered planet, the ecology, the economic and political disenfranchisement. Yeah, we get lost in thoughts about life instead of actually being here and doing what's available and present here. This is one of our worst habits. That's that big look up the mountain to go, I can't climb this whole ecological crisis thing. So, and we fall off the mountain. What's the job? I can take this tea bag and put it in compost. That's what I can do. I can take this piece of plastic and put it in recycling. I can do this not using Roundup and other products that are bad for the earth and the water and use organic, right? These are the moments, one after another. I can use soaps without harsh detergent. I can, right? This is the path. We like the idea of arriving. We don't like the idea of the continual path, but we're all on it. One moment, joyfully lived, is a contribution. Keep your eye fixed on the way to the top, but don't forget to look right in front of you. Oh, I didn't even, this is the mountain analogy. The last step depends on the next step depends on the first, is actually true. Don't think you've arrived just because you see the summit. Watch your footing, be sure of the next step, but don't let that distract you from the highest goal. That's an aspiration. We begin where? Right here. The step, the moment, the word, the action available now. This one, right? This is what leads to the next and the next and the next. And we can cultivate awakening, resilience, kindness, one breath, step, moment at a time, and no other. No other, just this one. If we can't, we get overwhelmed, and that's, of course, the total truth. She talks about a friend who, a little bit like me, carrying around water, had bananas, never made time to eat them, and she finally got frustrated, said, eat the damn banana already, at which she was saying, you're worthy, you're worth it, take the time that you need. The refusal to allow ourselves pleasure and joy is like the bizarro world version of narcissism. Yes, we actually call it negative narcissism. It's deprivation. It's I should not need, I should be able, it's quite grandiose in its thinking that somehow we could sustain, gain, grow resilience and capacities from not giving ourselves anything. There's nothing more arrogant than that belief. And we have a tendency to find ourselves on one side of this or the other. Nothing's for me, nothing. We just call it negative narcissism. It's just as arrogant a belief system. Of course, we all have needs. Of course, we are deserving of the time, attention, and care to meet them. And negative narcissism does not serve us well. It just depletes us. Richie Davidson, there's nothing there that it's all pretty good stuff. I like the thought, compassion is feeling for and not feeling with the other. I don't believe that's true, by the way. That's why I put it in blue again. I think we have to first feel with. That's the way we begin in empathy. Oh, like that, me like you. Oh, when you make that face. And, I have a child with some social struggles with Asperger's. And I remember capturing moments with him and kind of mirroring them to say, when it looks like this, can we drop into the body and see what's there? And of course, he's become the best in our family, not so surprisingly, out of that practice, at being able to stop and say, wait a minute, if your face is like this, if your shoulders are like this, and then he sort of takes that position and kind of goes, that hurts. Right. And it's from that feeling with, from that mirroring and joining, that we can then respond when we are whole and sufficient. When we are whole and sufficient. We can't respond, even with empathy, when we ourselves are an empty tank. While empathy is essential, if we over-identify with the person or people hurting, we can turn that into empathic distress because we've over-identified, overjoined, and we're drowning with them, is actually a part of what they're saying there. We can't, our own drowning is of no benefit to anyone. And so that we have to stand on the bank, it's called. We have to anchor ourselves to the mast as Ulysses did against the sirens, right? We have to stabilize ourselves so that we can then reach from that place of stability, from that anchor point to support, stabilize, and assist another. We cannot drown with them. There is no benefit. We have seen that happen any number of times, right? And it's always a shame. The quivering or trembling of one's own heart in response to the pain of another, that's my personal favorite definition of compassion. A movement of the heart towards, in the wish to respond to another. And how then do we live? How then do we live? Compassion implies boundaries, balance, stability. You remember me just talking about that. Clarity, that we see clearly what we can offer, rather than believing we alone or solely are responsible for fixing the problem. These are all delusions that will result in fatigue and the falling out, the washing out from continuing on the path. Those were just some of the boundary options. Saying no is a courageous act. How do we do that also? Knowing that we are not the only ones who are here to love, attend. Deep compassion is suffused with equanimity. That's that stabilization, that grounding oneself that we did today. Without that, sustainable, compassionate action is not possible. Is not. I think that's pretty good. We're almost out of time. I'm going to put some of those reflection questions up for you. What I think is most important is two things. What space, time, energy, resource do you offer yourself? I'd like you to pay attention. I'd like you to make a list. What are you offering yourself? And I asked you to begin with those 60 breaths every day. Some of us have not been able to get to that. This is not said with judgment, but it is certainly harsh, isn't it, towards oneself, not to be able to believe that you are deserving of that time and attention, just like me, not being clear that I am deserving of the time and attention to just sit there and drink that water, right? Essential. I'm going to be working on that this week. I've already got the meditation practice down. Some of you are working on those 60 breaths every day, stabilizing, developing equanimity, cultivating self-care in this way so that you can see the way to continuing it throughout the day, right? That is our practice this week. I think I'm going to switch over. Next week, number 6, interconnectedness. If we are not sufficiently connected to ourselves, the possibilities for interconnectedness and responding are quite limited. Let's see if we can't practice good self-care, self-attention. There is no one more deserving of your love and attention than you are yourself. I loved being here with you this day. Thank you for being so patient with last week in chapter 5. Self-care, be watchful what you believe that is. Does it contribute to resilience, to sustaining, to equanimity? If it does not, then binge watching Big Bang Theory may not be the very best thing you can do for yourself. And it might be. It might be. Just to give yourself that break, it might be, but I want you to be a little more attentive, little more intentioned, a little more skillful. What do we know? Getting out in nature every day, moving the body every day in some way joyfully, dancing, singing. We know 8 minutes, right? There's a research study that we were looking at in Awakening Joy. 8 minutes of dancing and singing a day changes the brain for the better. Listening to music. These are some of the ways we can begin to self-nourish and nurture every day, and drinking water, which I'm going to be practicing doing. Thank you so much, everyone, for your time. May we all be happy. May we all be safe. May we all see the beauty, the love, the goodness in ourselves, and make offerings through self-care. And may this practice today contribute. Remember that life is counting on you as well. Life is counting on you and the goodness of you and that which you extend to yourself. Please take the time for that. Let's see how it goes. Thank you. You are water to me. Thank you all so much. I'll look forward to seeing you next week, week 6. I'll send out some additional notes. They are already on encinitasmindfulness.org, Real Change. They're there. So you can go look at some of what the offerings were, the practice for the noticing what we do for self-care and what we don't do. Let's continue this good practice together. Be well, everyone. I'll look forward to seeing you all next week, Thursday morning, Greg, 7 a.m. I plan to be there. I hope you're there too. See you then.